Hello, this is Adil Bantahar, an associate professor at the University of Delaware's English Language Institute and the School of Education, and you are listening to Arab Accelerated Excellence.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're back. This is EdUp Accelerated Excellence, and I am your host, Jacob Easley II, PhD, PMP, with a guest that I think all of you are going to be inspired by, particularly if you are someone who identifies as Generation Z. So I'm going to let my guest introduce himself, tell us where he's from, what he's currently engaged in the world, and then we're going to jump right into a stimulating conversation. Guest, will you introduce yourself to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community?
Yes, of course. First and foremost, Dr. Easley, I'm so excited to be here. Excited to engage in conversation and hopefully uncover some new truth, right? I think that's what education is all about. My name is Jake Small. I use he and they pronouns. And what will I center today? I'm an uncle. I'm a friend to my friends. I am a lover of music and dance. I am a poet. I am a cook, although not always very good. And, of course, I'll mention my professional attributes as well. I'm an author, I'm an educator, and I'm a public speaker, specifically focusing on the advancement of Black boys and men, both academically and professionally. Spend a lot of my time doing research, but also engaging in creative modalities to explore racialized experiences and the human discoveries of Black boys and men, in particular as it relates to their educational journeys.
So, Jake Small, welcome to the show. And I had to say your name that way because Jake, you spell it Jake, all caps, Small. So, all cap first name, last name is Small. Somewhat of a contradiction. Can you just tell us about how did you come about that, I guess that style or that stylistic approach?
I'd love to. And for me, well, firstly, thank you for noticing the intentionality with which my name is written. For me, it's an honoring of those who came before me, in particular my grandmother. And she was a beautiful, incredible woman. She lived on this earth for several years, but we only shared about 15 or 16 years on this earth together. And in my first 15 years of life, she taught me so much. She taught me how to read, how to write, how to play the piano, how to write lyrics and songs. She taught me how to sing. She herself was a songstress, born and raised in the South in Kentucky. And she went on to lead, her church's choir. She taught music lessons. Beautiful soul, beautiful soul. And she suffered from Parkinson's disorder. And for those who are unfamiliar, it affects, of course, memory and cognition, mental acuity, but it also impacts, one's motor skills. And so for the entire time that I knew her, her hands progressively shook worse and worse and worse and worse. And she was a big part of my life. As a child, I remember she would sit me down and she would have me write out her grocery lists. And I thought it was because her hands were shaking so much that she couldn't steady the pencil or the pen. I found out later that that was just a disguise. She was helping me to learn how to sound out words slowly but surely. Juice, apple, milk, eggs. She could hold the pen, but she had me write down her list because she was slyly teaching me how to read and how to write. But she would always write in all capital letters. And I know now that it was because she could only steady her hand to write in all capital letters. It would take her sometimes an hour to write a sentence. I love you, my dearest grandson, Jake Small. She'd write things like that all the time and leave little notes under my pillow or by my bedside. She wrote my name in all capital letters, in part because she couldn't steady her hand to write in lowercase letters. But she was also the first person who I came out to as a queer person. And my grandmother defied all expectations as a Black woman from the South, and she received me with warmth and with love. She affirmed who I was in that moment. And until the day she passed away, she showed me how beautiful I was. And so I write my name in all capital letters to honor my grandmother, Doris Small, from the South, but raised her family in New York City and impressed upon me incredible life skills. And so as I write my name, it's an honoring to my grandmother, but also a memory of the life that she lived and the impact she had.
Doris Small, blessed memory. That's a beautiful story. I mean, as you were talking, I mean, my heart began to warm. I mean, that's really beautiful to be fully seen as a young person. And of course, this podcast is about education across traditional and non-traditional learning spaces. That it exemplifies this idea of finding creative ways to enrich and pour into a young person to help them to learn, as you said, how to spell and sound out words. So I really love that story.
Yes, yes. And Dr. Easley, my legal name is Jacob, which I know we bonded over. So we're name twins when it comes to the passport and the driver's license. We got the same name. So you're
I
family.
love it. So name twins. Hey, I have my phone here in front of me. I'm on LinkedIn. I see a picture of you, 3 years old. You posted this. But you talk about your relationship with your brother. So we're really centering family as we open up this episode. And he gave you words of wisdom about starting school, your first day of school. But he said that they're passing out brains, and you need to make sure that you get the largest brain when they pass them out. Can you just share for those who may not have seen this post, what does that mean for you, even still today?
Yes, yes, Dr. Easley. I'm hoping to build on LinkedIn a community of love, a community that centers family, friendship, that centers the power of education. And so thank you for calling out that one piece. Anyone who's listening and wants to join me on LinkedIn in this community of love, please find me and let's get connected. In this post, and it's an excerpt from my book, which I know we'll talk about a little bit later. In this post, I'm recounting my only memory from 3 years old. And it was a conversation with my oldest brother. And yeah, like you said, he told me that I would need to go out and find the biggest brain I could find, that my job would be to fill that brain with knowledge for as long as I lived. And looking back on it, it was a silly, playful conversation between brothers. But it's really guided how I see education, not necessarily as the acquisition of facts and information, but instead building the muscle for curiosity. And the fact that my brother chose to use such a playful metaphor in describing your job, your purpose as a student in school, I think it really speaks to the fact that learning can and should be very fun. It should be very playful. And as we grow, as we age into college, advanced degrees, and so forth, we need to remember that education can and should be an act of curiosity, and hopefully a playful act of curiosity where you're learning and discovering, investigating, and interrogating all the things we see around us. And I thank my brother, who is still 10 years older than me and now works as a lawyer in New York City. He has kept that same playful energy into his mid 30s, right? And he and I still have very playful conversations just like that as I get ready to pursue new professional or academic opportunities.
So, I mean, both of these stories, I mean, you sitting with your grandmother writing out her grocery list and your brother prepping you for school life are memories of joy and love. You said you are an uncle,
Yeah.
but you also say you're an elder. I don't know if uncle means elder, but elder in the Gen Z population. So, what does that title mean to you, and how do you begin to embrace it?
Yeah, certainly. And I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about family today. I think family's on my heart. And even hearing your story about moving from one part of the country to another part of the country and how your cousins played a big role in your life, family is clearly going to be a big piece of our conversation. I first heard the term elder attached to a generation when folks were talking about elder millennials and some of the challenges and some of the experiences that can be unifying for that group of people, for that group who is, I guess at this point, many of whom are trying to figure out how they negotiate this college debt, try to figure out how they purchase maybe their first home, try to decide whether or not it makes sense to start and raise a family. As I thought about other generations, of course, I think about my generation, Generation Z. And I was born in 1997. And that's the first year, that I know it to be the beginning of the Gen Z generation. And so typically, as I navigated different milestones in my life, I was the youngest in that circle because I have a late birthday, because I'm the youngest of my siblings, for whatever reasons, but also the first, a part of my generation to make it into the workforce. And so as I was comparing myself to my colleagues and my peers at work, as many of us do, um, I realized that I stood out, not just because I'm a 6'5" queer black man working education, which is a predominantly white woman industry, as we know, based on statistics and data. It wasn't just that made me stand out. It was also the fact that I was a digital native, that I was very comfortable associating myself with Gen Z. And I remember hearing conversations about Gen Z being far younger than we actually are. And by the time I was making it out of college and into the workforce, folks didn't necessarily know that Gen Z were operating alongside them in the cubicles right next door, in the offices down the hall. Gen Z at this point are as old as 27 or 28 years old. We are master's and doctoral degree holders. We are founders of startups. We are nonprofit leaders and accountants and lawyers and doctors and dentists. If you can believe it, we're gynecologists, we're registered nurses. We got all these different experiences now, but also as the oldest among my generation, I see it as an opportunity and a responsibility to be one of the voices of change. Right? I think that the Generation Z group can be characterized with a number of different attributes. Of course, we are not a monolith. We have Gen Z who are, diverse in a number of gender identities, sexual orientations, political leanings, and so forth. But we're characterized with a number of similar and unifying attributes. And for me, as an elder Gen Z, specifically in the workforce, I see it as my duty, my responsibility, and an opportunity to help change the workforce and make it more accommodating, more habitable, more sustainable for folks who exist within my generation, the ones that'll come afterwards.
So you encourage young professionals. I'm assuming probably still Gen Z or the next generation. What comes after Z?
What do we got? I think it's Gen Alpha. Is that what they're calling it?
Okay.
Gen Alpha, and I think they're as young as and then don't quote me, 10 or 11 years old. So still very, very young. The youngest of Gen Z are still in grade school.
So for these young professionals, you have this idea of find your where that aligns with your who. So
yes.
Can you take a moment to unpack that for us and tell us how it has shaped your career?
Certainly. And let me start by honoring the brilliant Black woman who first uttered these words, at least in my recognition. That's Caroline Wenga, the CEO and president of Essence Ventures, Essence Magazine, Essence, an incredible Black-centered media organization. And she said, if you can't be who you are, where you are, change where you are, not who you are. And I take that wisdom with me everywhere I go. I take it with me everywhere I go because it's important not to get into the habit of assimilation and changing the very dynamic of who you are. It's so important not to shift and sacrifice things that are so crucial to your makeup, to your fabric, just to fit into an opportunity that looks like it should be something special. Anyone who's listening right now, I want you to know that you, if nothing else, are an expert of your own experiences. And the things that you've done, the things that you've experienced, the identities that you hold, they are what make you magical. They are what make you unique and uniquely powerful. And it's important not to sacrifice too much of our power. We can't sacrifice too much of our magic just to get the next great internship or job or professional opportunity. To me, what Caroline Wenga said was, yes, aspire towards greatness. Seek out all of those incredible opportunities, but do not forget who you are and do not forget where you came from. And that advice that I heard in a random post that you put out there on LinkedIn one day has stuck with me. And hopefully it sticks with folks who are listening as well.
That's brilliant. I was just in conversation with a group of doctoral students and they all were doctoral students of color. And one of the students was talking about a professor reminding them that in this space, their ancestors are with them. And the student who brought it up was talking about how powerful that was for her to know, which really speaks to this idea of knowing from whence and perhaps from whom you've come.
Yes.
and why that's important in today and also how we forge forward. But you talked about being an agent of change. So with this thought, a line of thinking, change in the workplace towards what?
Great question.
What would be that change, ideally for you?
Certainly. And I'll try to start in the simplest of terms, because I think sometimes we as academics get into the habit of intellectualizing too much. When I think about the change that members from my generation, Gen Z, are calling for, it's a change in the direction of inclusive excellence. And what does that mean? That means I, and many of us, we desire to exist in a world of work where every single person can realistically thrive and succeed. And to do that, it means leveling the playing field. It means redistributing the privileges and the resources that folks have gained over centuries of a problematic capitalistic system and structure, unfairly providing some people with a few steps, a few extra resources, a few extra privileges, and also knocking some people down. What we're calling for is an equalization, a leveling of the playing field, one where, again, every single person can realistically thrive. And that means thrive as they are, not thrive by changing who they are and assimilating into a culture that doesn't expect us to be there, that doesn't want us to be there. And us, you can insert any vulnerable or marginalized population. You can insert women who aspire to leadership. You can insert queer folks, trans folks. You can insert people of color, and in particular, Black professionals in the United States of America. You know, you could really swap that in for any number of marginalizing identities. But what I and we are calling for is equity and justice, especially in the world of work, so that we can reasonably aspire towards the highest levels of leadership and simple things. And, you know, there was a time in American history where every single person could reasonably start a job and aspire towards home ownership, could live a debt-free life, could raise a family. And I think that we have to not, and please hear me when I say this, not go back to anything, but reimagine what the future can look like, where we have all of our base needs covered, when we can do things like, you know, be a first-time home buyer, right? Raise a family in a home that we're paying for and not feel stifled and like we're suffocating under the boot of capitalism. I mean, these are I think pretty simple simple things to expect, but you know, someone needs to be the voice of that change.
So I'm there with you, but I want to do a counterpoint. So what are your thoughts on the person who might say, and I'm going to say this in a way because I've actually heard this, I've got mine, you need to get yours. But what I'm going to extend that to say, I have what I have, and this might be for those in the traditional structure. And it's your job to get what I have, but I'm not giving up anything that I have, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable with the idea of having to give up any privilege that I might have.
Yeah. And I think that is similar to something else I've heard, not the same, but similar to, it was hard for me, it should be hard for you. Or at the very least, it was hard for me, why are you surprised that it's hard for you? And I think what we need to offer all of our peers, our colleagues, our neighbors, is a bit more compassion and grace, and the realistic understanding that the issues of today are not the same issues from yesterday, and they won't be the same issues as tomorrow. What we know to be true is that in 2013, we hit what's called the $1 trillion problem. The $1 trillion problem outlines this. We as a nation surpassed $1 trillion in student loan debt, making it the second largest type of debt that American borrowers carry. Student loan debt, right? This is something that we really weren't talking about 50, 60, 70 years ago. Of course, folks would take out loans to pursue school, but they weren't staying with graduates for 20, 30, 40 years afterwards. We have an issue. The cost of education is far too high, right? And when you compare that also with the prices of rent, the prices of groceries, the prices of homes, especially, I'm from New York City. I'm used to rent and mortgages being high. I currently live in Boston, Massachusetts, also one of the worst places for affordable rent, right? So I'm not expecting my rent to be the same as someone in Texas or North Carolina. But what I'm hoping for is compensation that is equitable when you compare it to the cost of living in many, many, many districts and regions around America. And so, yes, certainly. It's hard for anyone to achieve success. I think what's important to acknowledge is that the current and present challenges that young professionals are facing are different and in some ways a bit more burdensome when you compare the cost of living to the average income of a young professional today. And there are economists, there are folks who study economy and who understand all of this a lot better than I do. But at the very base, folks should make enough to live their lives.
Yeah. So, every generation, when I say generation in this sense, I don't mean Generation Z, but let's just say every 10 years or so we all are 10 or 20 years, we think back and say, oh, when life was simpler. So if we hold on to that notion that life is becoming exceedingly and increasingly more complex, it baffles to think what's going to happen going forward. So thinking about today in general, though, many Gen Z professionals are entering the workplace. How or what advice would you give to them to be able to advocate for themselves around the increased complexity, where there's an imbalance between earned income and the cost of living, for example? An environment in which you are, a current climate, in many cases, you're not able to be yourself or show up as yourself in the workplace. So how would you help them to advocate for themselves? Or what would you say to them to help advocate for themselves?
Certainly. And this advice is advice that I have built over the course of my career so far. I started my career working at colleges and universities, in particular in career services and academic advising. Because of course, if college is going to cost as much as it costs, it needs to be a springboard to something. And I think that something is earned income, is a sustainable job. And in fact, also a job and a salary that grows over time. And so I would say this: you're an expert of your own experiences. You know yourself better than anyone else in the world. And it's important to continue on the pathway towards learning more about who you are and what you do, what you love and what you're good at. Know your worth, and knowing your worth takes a lot of work. It takes, really trying something, giving something a strong attempt, and then getting feedback from trusted peers, from mentors, from supervisors, and find where your niche is, find where it exists. And in terms of advocating for yourself, be prepared to have to do a lot of additional work on top of what your job is, right? Advocating for yourself is not something that I've seen taught at any college or university in a way that's, really, really substantive. Advocating for yourself sometimes means walking away from opportunities that look really, really good on paper. Again, going back to Caroline Wanga's advice, if you can't be who you are, where you are, change where you are, don't change who you are. Now that takes a privilege, of course. If someone is offering you a contract, your first job out of college, it might be hard to turn away from that if it doesn't check all of your boxes. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be picky. I'm not saying that you have to take everything that comes across your email or your desk, right? But it is important to know where your boundary lines are. Not every opportunity is going to be perfect, checks all the way down the rubric. However, you should know what your non-negotiables are. And you should know and find opportunities to practice advocating for those non-negotiables.
Yeah, that's a different level of education or training. I'm going to distill it down, if you don't mind, to discernment.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to lay out one, two, or three words of wisdom around how one may grow in discernment, what would you share?
Yeah. I would share this. A lot of people start job searching by looking at the market, right? Going to LinkedIn, I'm an educator, typing in education jobs in this city, education jobs within 20 miles of that city. And I think that is, a common place to start, not the best place to start. It really starts with self-reflection. You grow in your ability to be discernful by first learning what it is you want and what you need. So many conversations I've had with students, early career professionals, and otherwise have centered on not what job they want to apply for, but instead, who are you? What skills do you have? Starting there is a really important step that a lot of people skip. And here's what you can learn in doing that intentional reflection process. You can learn what type of company, what type of organization, what type of job might satisfy your deepest and most core desires. So, for example, me, I can work well in a team. I can work well by myself. And that's not super important for me. I can work early in the morning or late at night. I'm happy with a job that puts me in the fields a lot. I'm happy with a job that keeps me behind a desk typing away at emails. But what's deeply important to me is racial and ethnic affinity. It's a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable. As a Black man, especially working in education, which is a white-dominated field here in the United States of America, for me, I need to know that I'll be working alongside other people of color, and in particular, Black professionals. How did I learn that? Through a lot of reflection, through imagining myself in the perfect working environment. And this is not something you need necessarily an internship or job shadowing program to do, although that can be helpful. But if you just sit down and think, where can I see myself spending 40 hours a week? What does it visually look like? What color are the walls? What are the greetings and the salutations that everyone uses in emails? Right? Small things like that. Does it have a cafeteria on the first floor with free food? Right? I was just looking up, by the way, this is a slide tangent. Google offices got a lot of amenities. I don't know if you've heard about this.
I'm laughing, actually. Go ahead. Free food.
They have a lot of amenities. And so are those amenities a part of your desired world of work? Like, thinking about these things can really help you to paint a picture of what the right job looks like. So when it comes across your email or your desk, you can be discernful in saying, well, it checks 5 out of 10 boxes. It checks 9 out of 10 boxes. It checks 1 box. And then it's very easy to make your decision.
Wow. I mean, that's very visual and very powerful. So I want to transition just a bit because I want to get into your book and talk about it. But I'll be remiss if I don't ask this question about uplifting and supporting young people, young professionals. So for that individual, young professional who is the only person like themselves in that environment, what advice would you give to them that centers the idea of the importance of self-expressed identity?
Well, first, I would say this directly to that young professional. I see you. I know that the struggle you're experiencing or will experience will be tough. Know in advance what you need from this opportunity and keep a laser sharp focus on that thing. Get it. And the job that you enter likely won't be the job that you retire from 40 or 50 years from now. You know, what you're going into right now will be temporary. Know what you need from it, get it, and be prepared to move on. And that might be experience building and implementing a budget. Maybe it's policy experience. Maybe it's some supervisory experience. Whatever it is, go into this opportunity, get it, and be prepared to leave, right? Having a strong exit strategy is very important. And I've been known a little bit as a job hopper. I don't love that phrase, that terminology. Each of the jobs that I've had thus far have been pursued very intentionally. And there were things that I wanted to give to the organization. There are things that I wanted to get from the organization. And I knew exactly what those things were before even starting. Now, did it change? Of course, here and there, but I knew what I needed to get. I knew what I was prepared to offer. And that helped me to make better decisions throughout the jobs and opportunities.
So, Jake, you're also an author, as you mentioned at the top of the show. You have a new book for every Black boy. If you haven't yet connected with Jake on LinkedIn, you'll find it there. I saw a post that it is now available in the local library there in Massachusetts, right?
Yes, it is. Here and I live in Chelsea, Massachusetts, just north of Boston. Chelsea Public Libraries is caring for every Black boy as of this recording date.
So if you're in Chelsea, hey, it's newly available in the Chelsea Library. So
and hey, Dr. Easley, may I say, hopefully coming to a library near you in the future.
Yeah, I love it.
Listening from whatever state or country around the world, coming to a library near you.
So if you can you share I'm holding the book up. So can you share with us the impetus or what was the driving force for this project?
Certainly. And before I talk about, all that this book was for me, I do want to mention who it was dedicated to. And dedication pages, we were talking about this before the show. Dedication pages oftentimes get overlooked, but I want to read the dedication of this book and then get into a little bit about why I wrote it. And maybe you'll allow me to read a selection from the book a little bit later in the show. But the dedication reads as follows: "For every Black boy made of copper and trapped inside his mind, for every Black boy with hands that work like hammers and a mouth of knives, for James, Aaron, and Justin, this book is for us." James, Aaron, and Justin are my three nephews. Each of them are at or under the age of 10. Beautiful Black boys with varied interests and entire lives ahead of them. They are a big part of why I do what I do. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm an uncle. And honestly, I'm an uncle first, right? In this day and age where so many folks lead with their professional credentials or academic institutions and affiliations, I'm feeling most satisfied when I can enter a space leading with the person-centered attributes of my life. And being an uncle is one of the greatest roles and responsibilities I carry. This book I wrote as an exploration of my own racialized experiences as a Black boy in school, as a Black boy becoming a Black man, as a Black professional, but also other human discoveries. And in the book, I talk about really heavy topics like love, like death, mourning, learning, education, being curious. And I use this book as an opportunity to really bring a creative and hopefully even therapeutic angle and perspective into this conversation about Black male success. We're faced as Black men with so many damning statistics. We're faced with statistics about how likely we are to go to jail and how unlikely we are to graduate from high school, get a college degree, let alone an advanced degree. We're told through media and through education opportunities, both implicitly and explicitly, all that we can become, all that we should aspire towards. And I think that we have to start the work of this revolution from a place of dreaming and imagining And my imagination muscle is so closely attached to my creativity muscle. And so this book is a collection of poems, short stories, visual illustrations, and an academic essay because I got bit by the bug of academia and I can't let it go. And in it, in each poem, I'm recounting something that was key and cornerstone to my Blackness and my Black experience.
That's wonderful. Hey, let's. I want to hear you give voice to at least one piece.
Yes.
From this book.
Yeah. So this comes from the second chapter titled "Letting In." The title is "Boys Like Us." Boys like us have always mattered to our mothers. With grease-soaked hands and ketchup on our sleeves, we were born as son, brother, daddy, friend. Our pilfered pride stashed inside the pockets of our neatly hemmed church khakis. We matter because she say so. And the she is important in this. This is a reflection in this poem on motherhood and the important role of a mother in a Black boy's life. And so I wrote this poem thinking about my relationship with my mother. Again, family's coming up in today's episode. And I wrote this thinking about the ways in which my mom has been one of my most instructive educators, her and my grandmother, who I spoke about earlier, and the role of Black women in Black manhood and cultivating and manifesting Black manhood is so incredibly important, yet so often forgotten.
So I have a research assistant, and we were talking about your episode in preparation, and she came up with this question, particularly about the book. So she says, you talk about this as the story of reclaiming your narrative, but the question she had is, how did the process of putting your experience into words change the way you view yourself and your past?
Yeah. I would say for me, writing this book and releasing this book, publishing this book has been therapy, right? As a researcher who specifically focuses on the academic achievement and professional success outcomes of Black boys and men, as a researcher, I have to grapple with those statistics. The statistics that say 1 in 4 Black men will spend some time behind bars before he's 40 years old. The statistics that say only 40% of Black men who start a college degree will finish it within 6 years. I have to grapple with these, not just as a researcher, but as a Black man myself, as a Black man who has a Black father and has 3 older Black brothers, who has Black uncles, who has 3 Black nephews. Black boyhood and Black manhood is a piece of everything that I do, including my professional and my academic interests. And so, again, I had to write this book using creativity, using poetry and prose, using visual illustrations as a form of therapy to escape from these damning statistics, but also to reclaim all that Black men can be, all that we can be, from lawyers to doctors to surgeons to chefs, educators and teachers, professors. We can be all things, and we are powerful beyond belief. But unfortunately, based on the media that we're fed, based on the outcomes that we see so often displayed in public media and so forth, the bar is low. And in fact, so many schools, K through 12, and even college and universities create these lowered bars for Black boys and for Black men, not giving us opportunities to engage in academically rigorous learning interventions and opportunities. Education and education policy is very important to me. And it's important for me to share today that I am concerned with the high quality education of all children. But for me, the start and the center of that work is supporting the educational outcomes for Black boys, right? When you think about the fact that Black boys, and let's get serious, I'm talking about first graders, second graders, third graders, Black boys are the most likely to be suspended or expelled, especially in the early parts of education, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and the end of compulsory education, high school. And, I follow a lot of this data, a lot of these statistics. representation can be so important. So, Dr. Easley, can I just say that I'm so proud to be in conversation with you, a brilliant Black man, to do this discussion today. I was recently reading that if a Black child has a Black teacher by or before third grade, their chances of going to college increase by 13%. If they have two Black teachers by or before third grade, the chances of them going to college increases to 33%. Representation is key. It's deeply important. And so writing this book, while it was therapy to me, it's also an opportunity to show Black boys that we are authors, we are writers, we are poets, we are illustrators. We can do all things.
So, I'm just going to say I have appreciated all of this so far. And I've appreciated this time with you. And I'm saying that because we have to make the announcement. And the announcement is Jake Small will be joining the Ed Up Accelerated Excellence podcast as a co-host for a special series elevating Black and minority LGBT community members in educational spaces. So, Jake, I'm looking forward to that. So I'm very excited.
Ooh, yay! Woohoo! And the crowd goes wild. Yes, Dr. Easley, I'm excited to co-host alongside you and uncover new truths about this important intersection of topics. We are both very passionate about education, and I know that we have a strong passion for exploring and investigating who's in the room, who's not in the room, who gets access, who doesn't get access. So hopefully in our future conversations, we can do some of that work with our audience.
And we're talking about issues of equity. So we want to make sure that all communities who, particularly those that have been marginalized, have a space to talk about educational effectiveness and equity. So, but before we end, I would like for you to share with the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community how they might connect with you. They know about the book, but what's next for Jake Small and how might folks connect with you?
Certainly. Well, I'll say this. Right now, you can find For Every Black Boy on Amazon.com. You can purchase a copy through there. That is the best way to support this work and this movement. Every single purchase helps me to donate copies to Black serving libraries and other free social services and programs around the nation. So please purchase a copy knowing that the proceeds will go towards reinvesting into the distribution of the book. Additionally, I'm most active online on LinkedIn. You can find me at Jake Small, and you'll know it's me because I have the queer flag behind my name on LinkedIn. You can also find me at I'm Jake Small. It's the letter I, the letter M, Jake Small, not I am Jake Small. I'm Jake Small on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm not super active, but hey, y'all, if y'all start DMing me and leaving comments, I'll start posting a bit more, but definitely find me on LinkedIn so we can build that loving and affirming community that I spoke about earlier in the episode.
Oh, and your website.
And my website, you can find me at www.imjakesmall, again, the letter I, the letter M, Jake Small, JakeSmall.com.
Jake Small, thank you for this opportunity to learn from and with you here at EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
Thank you so much. And we'll have some future conversations, I'm sure.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Radio. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow and share within your network.
A special thanks to our research assistant for this episode, Emily Bloom, graduate student researcher at Fordham University, studying in the Mental Health Counseling program. And we want to hear from you. If you have feedback on this or other episodes, contact us online at edupxe.com, that's edupxe.com.